Welcome to the NMED Alert, the webinar for waste managers, a special message about big changes in the hazardous waste regulations in New Mexico. This presentation is broken up into two segments. The first is about the new hazardous waste fees. That runs about 12 minutes. And the second is the new hazardous waste rules, and that runs about 15 minutes. I've actually taken this from a much longer presentation that was about 60 minutes long. I tried to condense it down as much as I could. Okay, part one, we're going to talk about the new hazardous waste fees. And you're going to discover here the new fee increases proposed by NMED and the actions you can take to reduce your fees. I want to ask a couple of quick questions first, though. Do you know that NMED has proposed huge increases in the fees for hazardous waste generators in New Mexico? Do you know your generator category and how that affects your new fees? And have you thoroughly examined all your wastes to make an accurate hazardous waste determination? Those are all really important questions because we've got a goal to get to here in this webinar, to find out what your new fees are going to be and to figure out how to reduce them. There are two factors in the determination of the fee structure. Okay, first is your generator category. You're going to hear me use that term many times today, and how many pounds of waste you generate. So very quickly, the step-by-step process for determining this is first you have to characterize your wastes. That's absolutely primary when it comes to hazardous waste management. You have to identify which wastes are hazardous based on the characterizations. Next, you have to determine the rate at which you generate hazardous wastes on a pound per month basis, because that's how your generator category is determined. And from, like I said, you determine your generator category from the generation rates for your hazardous waste, and then you find your new hazardous waste fee. Now, like I said, I've extracted this from the full webinar, which is about 60 minutes long. You can get to that webinar and get a whole lot more information because I'm really condensing it here. You can go to ehstips.com/NMED, okay? For the full webinar, 60 minutes, lots and lots of information, ehstips.com/NMED. Get the full explanation. You're going to get it all there. And if you'd like to get a PDF that has the download of all the slides in this presentation, and that's the full 60-minute presentation, you can go to ehstips.com/NMED alert. That will get you the PDF for all the slides for the full-length presentation. So, generator categories, that's what we're talking about. There are three of them, okay? There's only three generator categories for hazardous wastes. VSQGs, the very small quantity generators, the lowest category, they generate less than 220 pounds per month. The SQGs, the small quantity generators, they generate between 220 and 2,200 pounds per month. And the LQGs, the big boys, the large quantity generators, making more than 2,200 pounds of hazardous waste per month. So to find your new fees, we're going to take a look at it right here. Now, the hazardous waste fees are an annual fee charged to hazardous waste generators. Okay, that's where this all comes in. It's based upon your generator category for VSQGs and SQGs, okay, just the category alone. For large quantity generators, it's based upon your generator category and the total weight of the waste you generate during the year. The old annual fee structure is ending on 31 December 2019, and the new fees begin right away on the 1st of January 2020, and they will be assessed in 2021 for the first time, kind of like your taxes for the year. Now, side by side, I wanted to give you the comparison here. The old fees For the C squeegees, which are what they call V squeegees now, there was no fee, okay? No fee at all. If you were a conditionally exempt small quantity generator back in the good old days, okay, no fee. Beginning in January 2020, that fee will be increased to $100 per year. Not a really huge fee, but that represents an infinite increase, obviously, from no fee. Now, for small quantity generators, the old fees were between $35 and $250 per year, depending upon the total weight of waste that you generated. The new fees, beginning in January 2020, for small quantity generators is a flat $500 per year. Now, that represents an increase of 100% to 1,325%. So that's really quite a steep increase for the small quantity generators, going from $35 a year to $500. That's a significant increase. But for the large quantity generators, these guys, they're going to have to deal with this, okay? Large quantity generators used to pay 1 penny per pound of hazardous waste and 1 penny per ton of other various wastes generated during the year just totaled up. The new fee structure, beginning in January 2020, large quantity generators are going to pay a minimum of $5,000 per year for generating 5,000 pounds or less. If they go up to 5,000 to 10,000 pounds, they pay $10,000 per year. And they pay $20,000 per year if they generate more than 10,000 pounds over the course of the year. Now, that's a staggering increase of literally 9,900% increase in the fee for large quantity generators. But it gets worse. If you're a large quantity generator that comes up with 6,000 pounds of waste for the year, that boots you up into the $10,000 per year fee range because you've gone over that 5,000 pound limit. So now you're going to be paying $1.67 per pound for the waste you generate over the course of the whole year, which is an unfathomable increase of 16,600%. Now, going from a penny a pound to $1.67 per pound, okay? That's going to take a little bit to actually grasp. Now, for example, if you're a large quantity generator that disposes of waste paint, you pay, roughly $100 a drum for disposal, and the drum weighs 400 pounds, so you're paying approximately 25 cents per pound to dispose of the drum of paint, okay? With the new fee structure of $1 per pound that you're going to be paying at the end of the year, now your disposal price is $1.25 a pound. Your disposal costs have gone up 400%. Just an example, and I'm sure I could probably come up with others that were worse. But just think about it. I mean, so now you're paying 4 times what you used to pay for the disposal of your hazardous waste. Oh boy, I don't know. That's going to be pretty tough to swallow for some of these large quantity generators. Oh, and I almost forgot. The fees will be increased for inflation every year from now on. We interrupt this webinar for a very special announcement. The New Mexico Environment Department has dramatically reduced the annual fees for large quantity generators. Shortly after its release, the head of the New Mexico Environment Department Hazardous Waste Bureau watched this webinar. Within about a week, a notice was published by NMED where they announced that they were revising the proposed fees for large quantity generators. The previously proposed fee increase to $1 per pound was revised down to $0.5 per pound. That's just 5 cents. We in the regulated community wish to thank the New Mexico Environment Department for reevaluating these increases and establishing a more reasonable fee schedule. The fees for very small quantity generators and small quantity generators remain as originally proposed. And now, back to the webinar. But remember, the hazardous waste management rules for hazardous waste generators have also changed, and failing to comply with them can result in significant fines. We recommend that you watch the rest of this webinar to see how these changes may affect you. Thank you. So let's talk about ways to reduce these fees. Now, again, it's based on generator category, okay? If your current generator category is not correct, you might be bumping yourself up into a much higher pay range for the fees that you actually do. If you're not absolutely certain of your generator category, then you need to nail that down because everything is based on that determination. The best way to reduce your annual fees is obvious: reduce the amount of hazardous waste you generate. So there are obvious ways to do that: substitution, replacing hazardous chemicals with non-haz, recycling on site, which is unfortunately pretty complex and not very cheap. Reevaluation of your waste streams. Take a hard look at every waste that you're calling hazardous and make darn sure that it actually is hazardous. You can change processes to eliminate those that generate hazardous waste. Treatment is an option. Some waste treatment is allowed on site by the generator, and there are other ways to reduce the amount of waste you're generating that are a little too complex to go into here. So now that you've learned the step-by-step process and how to determine your hazardous waste, your generator category, pardon me, let me make this a little more real and show you how we can deal with this situation. For the past 35 years, I've worked in the hazardous waste industry. I know the rules as well as anybody, and I can apply the rules to any circumstance. I'm willing to make everything I've learned available to you because my mission is to help the hyper-regulated business owners and managers of America cope with the burdens of compliance with the EPA, DOT, and OSHA regulations. So what I'm proposing is to do a hazardous waste evaluation for you. We look at ways to reduce the rate at which you're generating hazardous waste, to identify incorrectly designated hazardous wastes, to confirm your correct generator category, to re-notify to the state if it is advantageous to you. And we can talk about how episodic events can help. That's a new thing that came along in the regulations. We talk about that in the next section. And I can answer any questions you have about hazardous waste management. You can get access to my hazardous waste evaluation simply by scheduling a phone call with me. All you've got to do is go to ehstips.com/HWCall. That's ehstips.com/HWCall. You can schedule a phone call with me, and we can talk about how to deal with this little problem. You get to pick your own time for a 15-minute call that is convenient for you. No charge, by the way, for this phone call. It's completely free. And we'll talk about your situation and how to ensure the best results for you. And so that you know your purchase is totally risk-free. If you have me come to evaluate your hazardous waste program and I don't find any deficiencies at all, you will not be charged for my visit. I will tear up my invoice and throw it in the trash. So if you have any questions, you can send an email to help@realehs.com. And I wanted to let you know that if you stay with me to the end of this presentation, I have a special gift for you, the NMED Alert Kit, a set of guidance documents, including a waste determination form and a waste accumulation form that I've developed, the HWGIR kit, as I call it, which explains all about the new generator rules for hazardous waste and where to get an 8712 notification form, because they have updated that form. So if you do re-notify, you're going to need the new updated form. Okay, on to part 2, the new Haz Waste rules. There have been absolutely massive changes in the hazardous waste rules in the last couple of years. And I wanted to ask a couple of questions to start out again. Have you heard of the new Hazardous Waste Generator Improvement Rule, which I fondly call the HWGIR? Are you responsible for compliance with hazardous waste regulations at your facility? And do you know how it might impact your hazardous waste program with all these new rules? So we're going to go through a very quick review of the HWGIR because I can go into details about this all day if we really wanted to, but of course you've got a lot of other things to do. So the real foundations of the hazardous waste generator improvement rule are accurate determinations of your hazardous waste. You've got to make an accurate determination of whether the waste is hazardous or not. You've got to make then an accurate determination of your generator category. There are now what they call conditions of exemption for all the generator categories, for VSQGs, for SQGs, and for LQGs. They're all different. The VSQGs have very few. The LQGs, they have a ton of requirements to be considered exempt. And I'm not going to go into an explanation of what they really mean by that, but it is actually quite interesting. We're going to talk about satellite accumulation points because the rules for those have changed. And episodic events are a brand new thing and actually a really good thing for waste generators. Now, there's also a new re-notification requirement for small quantity and large quantity generators. And again, if you want to get a PDF download of the presentation, you can go to ehstips.com/NMED alert. You can get a whole 60 minutes worth of all the slides downloaded, and you can look at those, a lot more information. So, as far as making an accurate waste determination, for each waste that you generate, you must apply the entire waste determination process. And by the way, I almost forgot to mention that has to be documented now. A really big change in the waste management process. So the first thing you have to do is to determine if the waste is excluded from the Haz Waste rules, and there are many exclusions. You have to determine if it is an EPA listed waste next. And if it isn't listed, then you have to determine if it's an EPA characteristic waste. And if it isn't any of those, then it's not a hazardous waste. So on to an accurate determination of the generator category. I mean, many of you know these, but let me just go through them quickly. For VSQGs, less than 220 pounds per calendar month. For small quantity generators, 220 to 2,200 pounds per calendar month, and of course that's hazardous waste. Large quantity generators, more than 2,200 pounds per calendar month, and the per calendar month is a very specific requirement too. I could go into a little detail on that, but I'll have to save it for some other time. So the conditions for exemption for VSQGs, very small quantity generators. You have to characterize your waste. Everybody got to do that. You have to keep the monthly waste accumulation amounts below the 220 pound limit. You have to send your waste to an approved facility or to an LQG. That's a whole nother story. We don't have time to go into that right now, but it's really kind of a cool thing. You have to keep your total waste in storage below 2,200 pounds. And you actually don't have to mark your containers or handle them nicely or anything, but I do recommend you do that voluntarily because it's actually a very good idea. Now, the conditions of exemption for small quantity generators are a little tougher. You have to characterize your waste, keep them below the limits for small quantity generators of 2,200 pounds per month. You have to ship the waste within 180 days. You have to keep the total waste in storage below 13,000 pounds. And you have to conduct weekly inspections of your central accumulation area. That's a whole nother topic that we'll have to talk about later. You have to mark and close your waste containers. You have to have a preparedness prevention plan and emergency action plan. Now, the big boys, the conditions of exemption for the large quantity generators are really significant. I don't even begin to go into all of them here. I'm just highlighting the ones that are really the most important. You characterize your waste. They have to ship their waste within 90 days, marking and closing of the containers, weekly inspections, of course, pretty straightforward. Now, LQGs have a lot more training requirements for their personnel. They have emergency procedures. There's an entire subpart of the new WGIR rule that is dedicated to the emergency procedures for large quantity generators. And large quantity generator, if they're going to close the central accumulation area or the facility as a whole, you've got to notify the NMED that that's happening. LQGs can now receive hazardous waste from VSQGs that are directly under their control. So that is also a very interesting little thing that they've added. Actually, not a little thing, that's a big thing that they've added at the federal level and been adopted here in New Mexico as well. Okay, on to satellite accumulation areas. Some of you may not have these or know what that really means, but a satellite accumulation area is a waste storage area at or near the point of generation of the waste, okay? And then you have a central accumulation area somewhere else, and the waste has to be brought over there periodically. And I'm going to skip all of the requirements for the satellite accumulation areas that haven't changed. I'm going to talk about the ones that have. A small quantity or large quantity generator who operates a satellite accumulation must have a compliant central accumulation area. Okay, that kind of makes sense, but I guess maybe some of them weren't. All satellite accumulation areas operated by a small quantity generator must implement the preparedness and emergency plans as required by that one particular section right there. Now, this is new. They didn't have to have a separate preparedness and emergency plan prepared for the individual satellite accumulation areas in the old days. And then the satellite accumulation areas operated by the large quantity generators must meet the requirements of subpart M, and that's a really significant requirement there. That's going to be quite a burden. I honestly don't know how some of you guys are going to deal with that, but unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Now, re-notification is another new requirement, and it's only for small quantity and large quantity generators. The small quantity generators must resubmit their Form 8712 in 2021 and every 4 years thereafter. And the large quantity generators must submit the Form 8712 every even-numbered year. And that's all it says, so I'm kind of counting 2020 as the first even-numbered year. So all you LQG guys got to get your new 8712 submitted. Now, episodic waste events are a really, really huge thing. I got to give EPA a pat on the back for doing this for us. Okay, now an episodic event is a planned or unplanned activity that does not normally occur during waste-generating activities. And the key is that this activity produces an amount of waste that exceeds the generator's usual category, but it doesn't affect their generator category. They look at it as kind of a unusual circumstance, and they just let you keep your generator activity as long as you manage the waste from the episodic event according to specific criteria. Now, episodic events for VSQGs are pretty straightforward. The VSQG can maintain its generator category during an episodic event by complying with several really quite rational conditions, storage and labeling and shipping them out in a certain period of time. There are quite a few conditions, but we really don't have time to go into them all right now. Now, episodic waste events for small quantity generators, they can maintain their generator category by complying with a very similar set of conditions. So, now that you've had a really quick glimpse into the WGIR, let me show you how we can make sure that you get the most out of this and keep you out of trouble with NMED. For 35 years, I've been a student of the hazardous waste regulations. When I see big changes in the rules, I want to make sure no one in the regulated community gets caught flat-footed. So I'm willing to make all of this understanding that I have, okay, I'm not going to take credit for it, it's just my job, because my mission is to help the hyper-regulated business owners and managers of America cope with the burdens of compliance with the EPA, DOT, and OSHA regulations. So what I propose is I do a WGIR compliance evaluation for your facility. We're going to make sure all your hazardous waste is accounted for and your generator category is accurate. We're going to make sure your record keeping and documentation is in order. We're going to look over your central accumulation area and any satellite accumulation areas. We're going to ensure that all your conditions for exemption are squared away, and that's a really important one. And we're going to examine your waste profiles and manifest just to make sure that everything is up to snuff there. And we're going to generally look for anything that might make NMED unhappy. So you can pick one, the HWGIR compliance evaluation or the hazardous waste evaluation for your fee structure, or we can do both. It's up to you. You can get the help you need by scheduling a phone call with me. It's really quite simple. Go to ehstips.com/HWCall. And because you're responsible for compliance with the regulations, and you can take measures to reduce your annual fees, I really recommend that you set up a call with me at ehstips.com/HWCall. And I just want to let you know how serious this is. Just a few months ago, a company in Albuquerque was fined $360,000 for violations of the waste generation and storage, and well, there was quite a few things that they messed up on, but they got nailed. I mean, really, $360,000 is a lot of money for violating some rules. It's not like they were dumping waste out the back door. They just didn't do things quite right, and they're going to pay for it. And just so that you know, your purchase of one of these programs is totally risk-free. Like I said before, if you've come to me to evaluate your hazardous waste management program and I don't find any deficiencies at all, you will not be charged for my visit. So if you have any questions, I encourage you to write an email to help@realehs.com. And I wanted to let you know, since you've stayed with me this far, here's the info package that I promised. It's at ehstips.com/alert. You can go there and get the NMED Alert Kit, a set of guidance documents, including the waste determination form, an accumulation form, a whole bunch of information about the new HWGIR rule and your 8712. ehstips.com/alert. So, who am I? Well, my name is Ron Harvey. I've been in the Haz Waste business 35 years, got into it completely by accident in 1984. I've personally handled more than 400,000 drums of hazardous waste, worked at 3 disposal facilities, and responded to several hundred different chemical spills and all sorts of situations like that. 35 years as a Haz Waste chemist. Yes, that's me in the yellow suit there, mucking out some really nasty old lead-based paint. And also, twice I've heard of goat milks, and I really love making cheese. I guess maybe that's the chemist in me. So thank you for attending the NMED Alert webinar. There is hope for the hyper-regulated, and I would be glad to provide that for you.